Hey guys, before I get started on this episode, the Golden State with Mates Patreon has a new lower price, $2.99 and $4.99 per month memberships where you can access up to 5 bonus podcast episodes every week, a daily Warriors newsletter, and get yourself in the draw to win monthly giveaways. I'll leave a link in the description. It would be great if you could go and check it out. Coming up on this episode, the Warriors fall to 2 tanking teams, the Utah Jazz and Chicago Bulls, in a 24-hour period. Where to next for the franchise as they fall below 500 for the first time since December? Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast after the Warriors suffer a 130-124 overtime defeat to the Chicago Bulls on Tuesday night. That comes on the back of a similarly close 119-116 loss to the Utah Jazz in Utah on Monday. It's very difficult for me to honestly be disappointed right now when you consider no Steph Curry, no Jimmy Butler, the 2 star players. And obviously, Moses Moody is out. He was out for a 4th straight game in this one as well with his wrist sprain or whatever else. But losing to 2 tanking teams, losing to 2 teams that aren't trying to win, is fairly inexcusable if you are a team in the Warriors who still have playoff ambitions, it must be said. Like we saw after that game against the Rockets last week, this team isn't throwing in the towel. And I don't even think these 2 losses were necessarily an effort thing, right? I do think in overtime in this one, they ran out of legs. And I that's somewhat fair enough. Your 3rd game in 4 nights, I think it was. Second night of the back-to-back, it goes all the way to overtime. That's understandable to a degree. I don't even think it's the effort. I think this is just the reality of where the Warriors are at without obviously their 2 star players and without a bunch of key guys here for the last month or so, really ever since the All-Star break. They are fighting hard generally, and that, they have pride in their performance, and that generally gives them a chance to compete and even beat some of the better teams in the league. If those better teams are slightly off on their day, which we saw with the Rockets last week, we saw, with the Denver Nuggets a couple of weeks ago, the Warriors are still capable of actually pulling off some surprise victories. But at the same time, they're not talented enough. They're not good enough to get it done against the teams that aren't even trying to win, right? Utah didn't play Keontae George in the entire 4th quarter. They're obviously already without their entire front court, and Larry Markin and Jaren Jackson Jr., Walker Kessler, Yusuf Nurkic. They weren't trying to win that game yesterday, and they kind of fell over the line because Blake Hinton, former Santa Cruz Warrior forward, decided to hit the dagger wing 3 with under 30 seconds remaining. And then in this one, Chicago twice had double-digit leads in the second half, and yet the Warriors still should have won that game. They were down 13 in the 3rd quarter, came fighting back. KP started cooking a bit, got up 4, and then the Bulls went on their own run, got it back up to double digits in the 4th quarter. The Warriors walked them down again. The Dubs get back in front by 5 with under 3 minutes left. And you think, okay, well, Chicago don't really want to win this game, so surely we can get this done. And unfortunately, the execution down the stretch was not bad, but not good enough, ultimately, because you started playing the foul game. You had, unfortunately, LJ Cryer made his first 2 free throws, was 6 or 7 on the night, but that crucial missed one with 9 seconds left, which meant it was a 2-point ball game rather than a 3-point ball game. And then Draymond commits a silly foul on Jalen Smith in the corner in what would have been a really tough shot. If he makes that, good luck to him. Obviously, they called it a 2-point shot or whatever, and he was able to calmly go to the free throw line, knock down both. Goes to overtime, and you just think from there, it's the Warriors should have closed that out. It feels like, and this has been a problem that's been going on for years, I feel, but particularly in the last 2 or 3, that Golden State and close games just aren't a great combination. Their ability to close out games down the stretch when they're 2, 3, 4 points in front, that kind of thing, they just, I don't know, it feels like they don't manage those situations all that well. And they did for a brief period there until Cryer missed one of those free throws, and then the Draymond foul was obviously a huge mistake. So as much as it's hard to be disappointed, because I've got to keep saying in the back of my head, Steph's out, Jimmy's out, what do you actually expect from this team? Well, what I do expect is to beat the teams that are tanking. Those teams that are in the bottom 10, bottom five of each of the conferences, and prioritizing their draft lottery odds. And you expect to beat those teams when you are a team, again, that is still, hell bent on trying to make the playoffs. So it's disappointing at the end of the day. And there's not a whole lot of positives to it, because even with guys like some of the better performing players in this game, like I thought Pat Spencer was all right in this game, but it's come off Pat Spencer playing like 9 terrible games in a row. Like he entered this game having scored double digits just once in the past 9 games, shooting to less than 37% from the field, 25% from 3-point range. Just as like Pods has started to get a rolling, a couple of 20-point games. I think he had 3 17-point plus games in a row with a 22 and a 26 in there. And then, like, as soon as you get that, you get a pretty rough back-to-back from him. Like, he only plays 26 minutes in this game, maybe a bit tired, 9 points. Gee continues to be pretty good, but, like, some of the turnover stuff with him, like, a couple of games ago, what do you have? It's like 7 turnovers, had another 3 in this game. Pretty inexcusable. So, I'm not sure where the positives really lie. What I would say is, like, the 2 recent additions we've had here in Seth Curry yesterday, who looks damn excellent, it must be said, for a guy that had missed 40 games with the sciatica injury. He looked really good with 13 points in 12 minutes, 3 assists, 4 of 6 shooting from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Got fouled on a 3-point attempt as well and made all 3 free throws. And then Kristaps Porzingis, I would say, has been promising. Okay, I wouldn't say he's been dominating games. I'm not talking about him in a hugely shining light necessarily, but I would say it's promising in terms of what he's delivered so far for the Warriors. The shooting touch and stuff hasn't been there. He was 5 of 13 again in this game, but he did have an equal team high 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 block shots, won his minutes again, which was a positive. So the Kristaps Porzingis thing has kind of been what I expected, I suppose. Like a guy that's missed so much time through injury and illness, you expect some of the shooting stuff to be a little bit off with him, and that should be an area that he improves, particularly once he finally, hopefully, gets his legs under him and starts feeling a bit better from a health standpoint. So the Porzingis thing, I suppose, is mildly positive. Again, you don't necessarily want to see 5 of 13 shooting from the floor, but he has some spurts, right? It feels like he plays in spurts to a degree. Like he had a fantastic start in the first quarter of this game, had like 7 points, hit a deep 3, looked great, then kind of went missing for a bit. Then the third quarter, as the Warriors were coming back from that 13-point deficit, he was a really big part of that, kind of hit the 3 that forced the timeout from Chicago. Golden State up 4, and you think, okay, here we go, let's run away with it now. And then from that position, the Bulls went on their own run again and got back up double digits. So Porzingis, I don't know, it feels still too early it feels like this will probably be determined either in the offseason if he leaves, or won't really be fully determined, I think, until next season when we get a full season of data with him. What a full season for Kristaps Porzingis actually is in terms of games played, who knows? And then Jonathan Kuminga at the same time, like, we can talk about the big numbers he's put in so far with Atlanta. The reality is he's played 3 games. Kristaps Porzingis and Jonathan Kuminga have played the exact same amount of games since the trade, right? As much as, Hawks fans were doing celebrations and doing celebratory laps and saying thank you to the Warriors and stuff for what Jonathan Kuminga's been doing. Well, he's missed the past few games again with this knee concern, which is an ongoing issue with him. I'm not going to the level to say he's got the same amount of injury and availability issues as KP, but it's not great, is it, in terms of Jonathan Kuminga? He's obviously got the player option in the offseason. Buddy Hield's played 1 game for the Hawks out of their rotation so far. So that trade, right, if you had to evaluate the trade right now, it's just a 0-all draw. It's just not really fantastic for either side, given the injury issues that KP, or health issues with KP, and the injury issues that JK has faced. Going back to Seth, though, I think he could be a really important part of this team. And in a similar manner to Horford and maybe Melton to a degree, and even Porzingis to a degree, like these veteran guys who can be really helpful, right? Porzingis can be really helpful. Horford has been excellent, I think. Shot the ball horrifically badly today, 5 of 18, but has generally been really good. Melton The shooting again is a bit on and off, like sometimes attacking the rim like we saw late in Utah yesterday. Bit problematic, a bit rushed, a bit forced, not overly effective, but generally has been pretty good. And it feels like a bit of a waste that the Warriors have these guys who are right now playing for a team that's now below 500 rather than on a fully healthy Warrior team with Steph Curry, with Jimmy Butler, where they can be more your ancillary pieces where you don't have to have them necessarily play great every game, but you know you're going to get like good production, good form from them in most games. It's just a real shame because I still think this Warrior roster, had it been healthy, could have actually done some stuff. And instead, you're seeing big minutes for the young guys. We've seen what Gee has been able to do, which has been fantastic. Moses, before this recent injury, has been fantastic. Pods has stepped up a little bit of late, albeit not a great game today, obviously. I really like what I'm seeing with LJ Cryer. I suppose he's been a positive. Again, missed that free throw, but his performances since he's got an opportunity over the last 4 games, he's an elite 3-point shooter. I would like to see more minutes from him over Pat Spencer, as much as Pat was okay in this game. I feel like the elite skill that LJ possesses in his 3-point shooting is probably more valuable than Pat Spencer, I think, at the moment, and he's more impactful. Again, both were a plus 18 in this game, a game high plus 18 for both of those guys. So both played well today, but I like what I've seen with LJ Crow over the past 4 games. So, yeah, well, where do the Warriors go from here? Right, they're now 32 and 33 on the season. They're back to the 9th seed in the Western Conference. They're behind the Clippers now. The fact that the Clippers have Kawhi Leonard healthy, they've got Darius Garland back. It feels like they've just got a better team than the Warriors right now based on health and availability. And you have to wonder how the Warriors can go about trying to get back to that 8th seed. So they've got 2 chances in the play-in tournament to advance to the playoffs. Do they even want that? I've had this conversation before. I think I had it over on the Patreon, to be fair, but like, how you guys let me know. Do you want the Warriors to win these games, right? Or actually, would you prefer them trying to finish with, say, the 11th? Because they're probably going to end up worse than Atlanta and Charlotte, who are the 9-10 right now in the East. They're probably going to do that. So if they can fall behind Portland as well in the West and finish as the 10th seed, suddenly you finish with the 11th worst record in the league. Maybe you get some luck in the lottery. Maybe you suddenly magically get up into the top 4 and get a genuine franchise altering pick. That's, if you finish with the 11th worst odds, that's a 10% chance of happening, 1 in 10. Would you prefer the Warriors actually go for that and say, we're going to try and give ourselves a 1 in 10 chance of landing a top 4 pick? And at worst, you're probably going to stay with the 11th pick, which of course is better than like the 15th or 16th pick if they ended up actually, making it into the playoffs. So we're going to get Steph evaluated in a couple of days here. We'll see what the latest is with his runner's knee issue. Obviously, they're not going to rush him back. I do wonder whether or not there is going to be some motivation from him to play with Seth and get a few games in with Seth. Not only him, but also KP, because you're going to have decisions to make with Kristaps Porzingis in the offseason in terms of his free agency. Obviously, Seth Curry, very impressive return performance yesterday, no doubt. But the fact is the guy's played 3 games all season. Is he going to be back on the Warrior roster next season? A guy that's going to be 36, coming off a sciatica issue. Do the Warriors want to go down that path again? So if he's not going to be on the team next season, well, Steph, if you want to play with your brother and get at least 1 game in, you're going to have to come back at some point here. So it feels to me like the Warriors are just going to keep battling along, and we're kind of, let's be honest, ever since the Jimmy injury and the fact we weren't able to trade for Giannis before the deadline, it feels like we're just biding time right now. We're biding time, waiting to see what can happen in the offseason. There were the reports from Mark Spears that suggest that Steph is expecting another star to come and join him and Jimmy and Draymond, if Draymond's still on the team, whether that be Giannis, whether that be LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. Like, there are going to be guys that the Warriors are going to be linked to here in the offseason. Kind of reconstruct your team. There's still a lot of pieces on this team that I actually like, right? Like Horford, I'm happy to have him back, obviously, if he picks up his player option next season. I'm happy to have Porzingis back on a far more team-friendly contract. Hell, I think Draymond's been playing a little bit better recently, and I've always said, like, I'm happy to have Draymond back, just not on $27.7 million. I'm happy to have him back on, 9 or 10. That's fine. Gee's obviously locked up. I'm happy to have Pods back. He's on a rookie deal. That's valuable. We'll see what happens with the contract extension with him, but at the very least, he's making, 4 or 5 million next season. That's a valuable guy to have. Moses is obviously going to be back on a team-friendly contract. So there's still some nice pieces that I like here, but obviously the Warriors, with Jimmy probably missing half of next season, you would like to give yourself a little bit of buffer, a little bit of leeway by going to go and get another star player. If that means you've got to move on from Draymond, if it means you've got to move on from Porzingis, then so be it, I suppose. But obviously they're going to have their draft capital, and if they keep losing games like this and losing to tanking teams as they have done against Utah and Chicago in the last 24 hours, then suddenly their pick is actually going to look a whole lot healthier and look a lot better to not only potentially use, and particularly if you can get up in the top 4, but use in a trade potentially. Again, the Giannis thing is going to come up. So it just feels like we're biding time. And of course, if you're just biding time and the absolute best outcome here is maybe pushing the Spurs or the Thunder to 5 or 6 games in the first round of the playoffs, which even that seems like it's probably unrealistic. But if that's the best possible outcome, do you really want to charge and attack that? Or would you say, you know what, Steph, just settle down, mate. Just have the rest of the season off. Make sure that knee injury is good to go early next season, because you know what? We're going to need Steph Curry to be Steph Curry early next season, because you don't want to be in a situation where Jimmy comes back halfway through next season, let's say 50 games in, or let's say even 40 games in, and you're 20-20, and again, you're just battling to make the playoffs, right? You want to be able to bring Jimmy in at a point where you're around like a top 6 seed, right? And you don't have to push too hard. You don't have to push him too hard off an ACL injury over the latter half of the season. In a similar way as like when Clay returned in 2022, the Warriors were already one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and he was just able to come in, and there probably was a period, and there could be a period, there was a period allowed there where it's like, maybe while we're reintegrating Clay, we have to take half a step back just to make sure like he's in the fold now and we get him back up to speed. But we can allow that because we are so far ahead of the pack, really. We have already kind of guaranteed ourselves a playoff spot to this point. Are they going to be able to do that with Jimmy Butler next season? I have my doubts, because the Western Conference is going to continue to be really competitive, I think. But that's got to be probably the priority, to be honest. And that means not necessarily playing Steph Curry a whole heap down the stretch here. If at all, again, playing with his brother might be a motivating factor. And for Steph being nearly 30, 38 years old in a few days here or whatever, even like a play-in tournament game, and maybe he goes off for 30 or 40 points in that game, and it's kind of like a playoff atmosphere feel to it, and maybe it's actually something you remember, right? Like I'll still remember like the playing games in 21 when we lost to the Lakers, and remember LeBron hit that BS, or was it a banked in 3 or something like that, where he got hit in the eye like a possession earlier and he tried to claim afterwards that he actually couldn't see. He just threw up a shot and it went in. Absolute dagger to the Warriors there. They could have finished as a 7th seed. Instead, they go home, face Memphis, lose to Memphis. They're out. Obviously redeem themselves by winning the championship next season. But I actually do remember, like, some of this play-in stuff I do remember. Like the Sacramento game a couple of years ago just had me vomiting in the mouth from the opening whistle, essentially. So if Steph comes back and just drops 40 or 50 in a play-in game, well, at least that gives you a memory, right? A memory. Now, it's clearly not ideal, but it feels like the Warriors are still going to be going for something like that. But in the meantime, they're also just not talented and good enough to even beat teams that are trying to lose, in the case of the Jazz and the Bulls in the past 24 hours. So, don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. What do you think the Warriors should do here over the last 17 games of the season? It feels like they're just biding time. They're just fighting hard, but they don't have the talent necessarily. They're trying to reintegrate. A lot of these guys are playing for new contracts and to remain with the franchise beyond this season. If you think of guys like Quentin Post and Pat Spencer and LJ Cryer and guys like that, Nate Williams, guys are trying to stick with the Warriors long term. Even like veteran guys, Seth Curry is obviously, he's played 3 games all season. Can he have a hot stretch here to finish the season that motivates the Warriors to bring him back in free agency? can KP have a big stretch over the final 17 games of the season to motivate the Warriors to give him something that he is content with in free agency? So these are all questions that are still to be answered over the final 17 games of the season, but it feels like those individual storylines and individual performances are almost like more important than the team right now, because from a team perspective, where are you really going? You're 32-33 now. You're ninth in the Western Conference. The best thing you can do is finish seventh or eighth and maybe give like the Spurs or the Thunder a scare, right? Because I actually think the Warriors match up pretty well against those teams if they're all healthy, bar obviously Jimmy is out with the torn ACL. So that feels like the best possible outcome. Otherwise, the other side of the spectrum is you actually aren't too disappointed with losing these games down the stretch. You finish as actually the 10th seed, you get bundled out first playing game. You might finish with the 11th worst odds in the league, and you try your luck at the lottery, and you got a 1 in 10 chance of finishing with a top 4 pick, which would actually, I think, drastically change the fortunes of the franchise. I'm going to finish up there, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in here. Quick episode with a few thoughts and a few takeaways from what we've seen over these past 2 games. Really disappointing 2-game stretch because they obviously had that really impressive win over the Rockets last week. And then the performance against OKC was actually really good as well. Like they put themselves in a position where they had multiple opportunities to take the lead in the final 90 seconds of that game, missed some crucial free throws, and didn't quite get it done, and Shea hits the dagger over Draymond. So they were 2 really good games. And then obviously you've followed that up with 2 games and 2 losses against tanking teams who don't really want to win and are probably, as a front office and as a ownership and stuff like that, are probably disappointed with having beaten the Warriors in terms of Utah and Chicago in the past 24 hours. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Gold State with Mates on Patreon, Instagram, and TikTok as well. The Warriors now have a pretty difficult schedule. They'll face the Timberwolves on Friday at home before embarking on a 6-game road trip that includes matchups against the Knicks, the Celtics, the Pistons, and the Hawks. We'll see if Jonathan Kuminga's back for that one against the Warriors. I'm sure he'll be motivated to do so. Thanks again, guys.